Alright, welcome back to part 4 of this Rune Level 1 run. I think my plan for this part is to go through, kill Radahn, and then come back and kill Godfrey, and then kind of defeat some bosses along the way. I'm mainly aiming to just grab the last talisman slot that I have available by killing Godfrey, and then continue on from there. Going through Caelid, I kind of wanted to start knocking off some of the quest lines around Millicent. You start this off by defeating Commander Nail, which is right behind this trunk in front of me. Um, this isn't too bad of a boss fight, although I can see it being a problem with the fact that he summons enemies uh, right like as it starts, so they could be a problem. Let's see. I don't think it should be too hard. His moves aren't too bad, and we can get a first hit in. Might be better to take out the archers first, as dealing with them is going to be much more of a pain. Oof. Oh, okay. That hurts. I get the option to use my horse in this fight, so we could try using that in this early stage, just for... Oh my god. That did not go very well. I could try using the horse to run around to try to avoid some of the melee in the first part where he has multiple summons. Definitely at the beginning, want to mostly deal with like keeping them at a distance and just going for like critical hits. Could also be dealing with parries, because they can be parried like that. Nice. Jumping heavies are always good because they give you a riposte after, which can do a lot of damage. Also, just go as far away as you can when he does this. Do not be close. The arena is large, so you don't have to worry about running into anything. So one thing is, actually in this fight, you see that whenever I hit, I'm actually like going and ducking underneath his swings, so you can actually be a little... I shouldn't say less cautious with your hits, but you can definitely push a little bit more, because sometimes he'll just miss you if you've already swung. Oh, there we go. We also got a frost buildup on him. This is something I've changed since last time, is I actually learned what Ashes of War do, even though I have around like 250 hours in this game. I never knew what they did. Or at least never tried to. But now, I've kind of learned how to use them a bit more and exactly what they do. And it helps a lot in these fights, just having as many status effects as you can. I went for Frost just because it lowers their defenses, so you can do a little bit more damage, and also, I don't know, there's some enemies that aren't able to be bled, but most enemies can be frostbitten. Using an Ash of War on your weapon is always generally pretty advised in these runs, just to get a little bit of extra status buffs, since in this game status buffs, or status debuffs, are really, really strong. I've basically been using this, and I've now upgraded it with Cold, and then I also use the Cold Hook Claws, because they will swing pretty quickly, and then they'll also increased Frost buildup and Blood Loss, so you can deal both status effects on one weapon. That swings really fast. Neil is getting a little bit close. Don't want that. Alright. Back out a little bit. that one's a low one. That one's also pretty low. Don't want to go in since O'Neal is right on top of him. I'm going to stay back a little bit further and see if I can separate the two of them. Might be able to actually just have some throwing knives. Yeah. Throwing knives might be able to just take them out from this distance. Alright, I'm going to heal up. Sometimes it is just wiser to use your healing as soon as you can. Even if, like, you want to conserve them, just because then you won't have, like, insta-kills happen. Oof. Yeah. Kinda want to keep your eye on them. Backstab him, should be a kill. And all that's left is O'Neal. Don't need the parry anymore. Not sure if he can be parried. Although, don't really want to test it right now since I'm pretty sure I can do it without. Doesn't have much horizontal range, so if you can like stance away from him, he really can't catch up to you very easily. There we go, there's both a crit and the frost. 600 damage for a crit, that's good. Alright. No use of trying to tank that, just run away. That was a mistake, trying to charge up that heavy. Probably should have just gone for another jumping heavy instead. I don't know why, I'm over pushing a little bit too much. It's not punishing me too bad because it's not going to instantly kill me. But I do see a buildup of Scarlet Rot that might become more of a problem later on. I generally try to dodge into the swing, just because that'll leave you in a place where it's a lot easier to not get hit. Alright, he builds these guys up. I'm going to take out one of the ones on the side first, instead of the ones in the middle, because it's a little bit safer. I say that as I miss the backstab. These guys can kill you in 2 hits, so it's better to just try to heal. I can hear O'Neal approaching me from behind. These ones are hard because they do not want to separate. Just get like 1 hit in and then leave. Oof, they stagger those hits, I couldn't dodge out of it. this guy kept running up. Okay, I'm gonna watch my surroundings because I'm getting stuck on stuff. Backstab him. Go. Ah, it doesn't kill. Ooh, out of heals, but I don't think I should need it for once these guys are dead. Okay. Now it's just a Neil left. I'm gonna also drink the mixed physics now. Hopefully that'll prevent me from dying. It's a good thing because I missed that dodge. Alright, because I'm low HP or low heals, I definitely just want to play this thing very passive. And jumping away from his location, which means it's harder to hit him with a jumping heavy. I need to like stop jumping as I'm moving and just stand still for a second before I jump. One more, it's open. And I think once I get him down with one more frost buildup, he should be dead. 2 more swings there. Last swing. Two more. Last swing. There you go, there's the buildup. Alright, he's really close to being dead. Yep. I think like 1 or 2 more jumping heavy should do it. Don't want to get greedy with them. There you go. It's also another thing is whenever you do have the frost buildup active, and you just had some sort of frostbite active, don't push too hard. Play a lot more passive because you can't stack 2 of them at once. If you have bleed, you can continue stacking it up, but with frost, once he has his defenses lowered, he can't be frostbitten again until it wears off. But that wasn't too bad of a fight. And then that should be the gold needle for Millicent. Exploring through Celia, you also come across this boss once you've unlocked the 3 torches that are in there. These I remember being a pretty easy boss, although I think I came into this much later than I should have been. So, don't have too much experience with them. Oh, great. Staggered me when they did that. They're just very fast, and that second one wanted to dodge all my attacks whenever I was getting them low. Alright, let's try this again. That one really likes attacking, doesn't it? Yeah, you get within range, the one with the shottle will attack, and the one with the hammer won't until you're in like the worst situation. Come on, separate. God damn, their range is so massive. I was able to get them separated. And that is the next step. Far enough away that I can heal. And probably keep pressing this one. Oh, what hit me there? Low on stamina, probably should wait. Okay, this one's getting really close. I want to finish this one off. Oh my god, that double swing is super hard to dodge. Okay, stay separated for a bit. Alright. Oh my god. They definitely like to cover each other's misses. Ah. You know what? Daggers. Oh, that actually separates them. That's nice. There you go. That one's dead. Poise. Yeah, back yourself into a corner. Then I can just wail on you. You can't do anything about it. Definitely have low HP though, so I don't want to push too hard. I'll just step out. Then there we go. Yeah, it's mostly just separating them. I also found it interesting that if I throw a throwing knife at them, they try to dodge it, which actually allows you to separate them a little bit easier. I could have used that a lot more at the very beginning. So if you just kind of like throw a throwing knife in between the two of them, they'll just try to dodge it opposite directions, and you'll be able to separate them that way. The fight is pretty low HP, and they do pretty low damage, so it shouldn't be too hard for these kind of low levels. And now while we're here in Caelid, it's probably also time that we take out Exoix. These dragon boss fights are pretty much the same between every single one of them, except they do slightly different things. Like, this one obviously produces a lot of Scarlet Rot, but its attacks are generally about the same. It just has a lot of HP. Come on. I don't want to get backed up against the wall over there, so I'll try to stay on this side of him. Like, kind of closer to the side of Grace. Alright, turn this way. I want to keep myself open with this back area. If you go too far away, he'll just teleport back, which is more desirable than him pushing you into a corner. Also, you want to make sure that his back is facing towards the church in the back, because if he faces any other direction, he has a chance of jumping up on the ledge and then just getting himself stuck there.
Nope. Doesn't look like I'm any better at hitting. He's kind of backing me against this wall here. There we go. There's a jump. I know I don't advise going on this side, but he's pulling me a little bit too close to that bottleneck area, and I kind of want to pull him away a little bit further. Half of the struggle with this fight with X-Like specifically is just the terrain. Like, there's so many things you can get caught on, so many places for you to like get into in an awkward spot, or him to put you against a corner or something. Yeah, like this kind of situation. I'm like close to the wall, and he does that like AoE hit. Could also pull him down this direction as well. I don't know why I got off torrent. It's close. I don't know why I hopped off torrent there. After it jumps back, you don't want to hop off torrent. Did. Lower your head. See, like that, it's just fighting the terrain is like half the battle. Because he puts, it's either you're gonna run against a wall or he's just gonna step over something and then you're gonna be out of range to hit. Jump off the horse. Frostbite proc. Taking a lot longer than I anticipated to fight him, just because I just can't seem to hit him. I do land hits though. I can do actually decent amounts of damage. Okay. Delver's back. Good. Decided to pull that attack out. It doesn't last for too long, but it is definitely something that you want to worry about. Jumping way too soon, I think that's the problem. Bring him out towards the right a little bit further. Yeah. I'm jumping pretty soon. I think that's my problem. I need to jump when I'm like right on his head rather than jump into his head. My range for my weapon is shorter than I'm expecting. frostbite and a riposte. Good damage. Alright, if you can like... Here, I'm gonna see if I can lure him back to where we spawned from. Guess he said no to that. Oh, that is... okay. Yeah, see, you're able to escape that even if you hop it on as soon as he does it. A little bit in the range of that. But you should be able to escape it regardless of how close you are, as long as you do it as soon as you recognize it happening. Alright, one more frostbite and that should be X-Like's dead. Just need him to step closer. Right through his head. Alright, it's like a hit or two more. Should be frostbitten. If I can even land those. Did. Okay. See, he'll step at a high point. There's so many, like, basically hills in this area. It's hard to hit him. Alright. He's gonna teleport back one more time. Hopefully he just plays nice and doesn't do the AoE breath. Just kill him with throwing knives. He was low enough to just kind of take out with throwing knives at that point. It should be faster than trying to swing him, hit him, which I was failing to do the entire time I was fighting him. This is, I think, probably one of the hardest dragon fights, just purely because of the terrain. There's too many hills, and there's too many things that he can elevate himself off of, and places he can bottleneck you, and awkward situations he can get himself trapped in. But other than that, dragon fights are pretty much the same between each one, so once you've mastered one dragon, you've mastered them all. And now we arrive upon the Radahn's castle. Well then, I guess it's time to fight him.
Are you good and prepared, young chum? The festival begins. Before we begin, allow me to paint you the full picture. General Radahn is cursed ever to wander. Eaten from the inside by Melania's scarlet rot, his wits are long gone. Now he gathers the corpses of former friends and foes alike, gorging on them like a dog. howling at the sky. But now, we must make merry.
O gathering of champions, the revels begin. The celebration of war. The Radahn Festival!
You will find the field of battle past the church ahead, upon the shore under the fort. General Radahn is there, even now, divested of his wits, devouring corpses, and howling at the sky.
Alright, time to start the fight.
I won't be using any summons during this fight. This isn't like the main boss that I had the prevention for with summons. Because you can just summon infinitely and just let them attack Radahn endlessly. So it doesn't make it challenging enough. Kinda want to just fight him on my own. More fun that way. Just want to dodge through those first spears, and then as soon as he goes into the arrow rain, you can't do the tracking ones, so you just hop on Torrent and run to the side. Once he does 2 of them, you can start running towards him because the arrow rain should run out, and then he does the actual tracking arrows again. Ah. The greatest starts. Kinda want to keep yourself maxed out. This attack, he basically has himself like going in a single line for a long time. So it's easy to get around behind him. That attack I remember having massive hitboxes, but they've changed a lot about Radahn since his release. A lot of damage though. Yeah, this one you kind of just want to run, dodge his first attack, and then just get behind him. Then you can swing quite a bit. Good damage on the frostbite. Yeah, that has a lot smaller hitbox than the last time I fought him. I remember fighting him in his original state, and that had ridiculous hitboxes. That can hit me. But now, it actually has what I would consider decent hitboxes. Right. If you can get behind him in this attack, you can basically have free reign to just hit a bunch of times. Its AoE does not have the space to hit you from there. Well, here I am again, doing another one of these voiceovers. This will probably become a little bit more common the further I get into the game, where I kind of just let the gameplay go on in the background of the winning run and then kind of just talk over these. A lot of this comes just due to the amount of concentration these bosses need. It's hard for me to kind of just talk as I'm fighting, because then a lot of times I'll just make one simple mistake, because I'm focusing on trying to get words out of my mouth, and obviously one mistake can lead to death. I mean, this is, one of 2 that I'll be doing in this one part alone, so this is probably something that'll just help me with concentration for future parts. But before I detail exactly all of the strategies I used for Radahn, I want to just state on how much I absolutely love this boss. This has to be one of my favorite bosses just in this game alone. I think it's just the over-the-topness of Radahn and all of the magic and attacks that he does, and especially just seeing his part 2 transition where he just comes out of the sky as a meteor is just so insane to me. It just looks so cool. I don't know, there's just something about Radahn that's just so much fun to fight. But in terms of the actual weapon selection that I used, I actually went with the claws. This is a slight change over a lot of other bosses. Instead of using the longsword, just because from this point onwards, most bosses have such high resistances and such high HPs that
I can't really just go in and try to brute force my way with like a damage stat alone. I need to have some sort of way to deal some a percentage-based damage to the boss's HP bar. The two that are really useful in this situation are Bleed and Frost. Bleed does like 15% of the boss's HP. I think it's lowered since DS3, but I think it's like 7% now of the boss's maximum HP. So if they can be bled, I probably will be using it from this point onwards. The claws are great for this selection just because they're a fast swinging weapon that, at least for their first swipe, you can swipe twice, so you hit them twice with that status prog. But the weapons themselves already have bleed on them without any sort of Ash of War applied to them. So if you were to, in the case of what I chose, I added a Frost Ash of War on top of it so that it would deal both bleed and frost damage. This just basically allows me to do as many status buffs as I can onto Radahn and get as much damage without having to rely on just a flat damage number. Now, another thing is that Frost can only be procced once and then has this sort of like cooldown where the boss has its defenses lowered and you can see they're kind of covered in this sheet of ice. You can actually get rid of that by hitting them with some sort of flame weapon. So what you can see is in my offhand I have a broadsword that's infused with some sort of fire ash of war. That whenever I actually proc a frost hit, I'll quickly switch to the broadsword and just hit him once with it. Get rid of the frost, switch back to the claws, and keep rebuilding the frost. This just allows me to, again, build as much status effect as I can because that is entirely my damage in these types of runs. Now, in terms of Radahn's like moveset and difficulty, he's changed quite a bit since his original release in this game. I think at this point, this is his second patch, basically dedicated solely to Radahn. In his first patch, which was, I think, like a week and a half or 2 weeks after the game's launch, From had nerfed Radahn in quite a few different ways. One of his, or a lot of his hitboxes actually had severely reduced hitboxes. I think they scaled them down by like 30 or 40%. This put them actually in a better spot than what they were, where they aligned with the weapons themselves. The hitboxes make a lot more sense after that patch, especially whenever he like spins around on the ground. That attack had really crazy hitboxes, and before I even came into this fight, that was the one attack that I was most scared of. The other thing they nerfed about Radahn was his damage in that first patch, where they nerfed his damage as well by like 40 or 50% for like all of his attacks. This almost trivialized his fight, and you know, a lot of people complained before about his, you know, ridiculous amount of damage, but now it was just like he was easier than like Godfrey, just because of the infinite summons and now his inability to deal any amount of damage. But at the time of fighting him in this clip, they actually came out with a second patch that they stated that those damage changes were unintentional, and that they had reverted them at least closely to their original damage values. I know there are still a few attacks that have slightly lower damage than their original counterpart, specifically the gravity orbs and the gravity meteors that you see flying, like hovering behind him right now. Those ones have still reduced damage than what they had before, but that seems kind of fair because even with having like 40 or plus vigor, those things would still be able to one-shot you, which does seem kind of ridiculous. Especially because another thing I found with those two attacks is that they often had hitboxes that were slightly ahead of where the actual visuals were. Or at least, I guess I tried dodging them whenever they looked to hit me. This partially could have just been because they're accelerating as they reach towards you, so I dodge when I assume they would hit you with a constant velocity, but then that would be too late because now they're moving faster. But other than that, it's basically all that I had for describing Radahn. But at the end of all of this, it's another thing that I literally just cannot restate enough times of how much I enjoyed fighting this boss. Like, you can hear it at the end of after Radahn is beaten, just my absolute enjoyment that he's done. Uh, this is one of the few bosses that actually I would 100% come back in another SL1 and do this fight over and over again just because of how much fun it is fighting him. But it's just, this boss is just so much fun to fight. I would do it over and over again if I could. I think this is all I've had to say about Radahn. At this point, I think I'll just let the gameplay finish and let you guys watch. Oh my, let's go, let's go, let's go! Oh my god. Ah, I absolutely love Radahn. Holy sh... That has got to be one of the best fights in this game. It's... I love that. And there's Radahn done. Uh, that fight took quite a few attempts. I did have to take a break and go to bed after the first few attempts. I started this thing at like 2 in the morning. But the fight honestly isn't too terrible. I remember that fight being a whole lot worse in the initial release of the game, just because whenever he does the spin along the ground and drags his swords, the hitboxes for that were way out of proportion, and within a recent patch they like shorten the hitboxes by like 30 or 40%, which actually makes them line up with the weapons themselves. Other than that, the difference between his phase 1 and his phase 2 are very minimal. He has basically the same attack patterns throughout all of his phase. He just gains an additional attack or two depending on the magic that he's using. Um, his damage is high, but it's not enough to insta-kill you, especially after you've gotten the Shield Talisman, which is why I went to get that first. And now that Radahn is done, that means that the entire city of Nokron's open, and we should be able to finish Ronnie's quest line at this point. Other than that, I think the next thing that I'll be going for is Godfrey, just to get that last talisman slot. There's also a Bell-bearing Hunter that's located here in the isolated merchant shack up in Lando, or the Atlas Plateau. Has much higher HP than the other ones. And also, does a lot more damage. Generally using the same strategy to fight this dude as I fight all the other Bell-Bearing Hunters, where you just parry and riposte all of his swings, and then any magic attack you just dodge. Although I have changed it up slightly, and I am using claws instead of longsword, just because instead of swinging once per opening, you can actually swing twice. So he doesn't do a magic. I want him outside the shack. Also, a great thing about these is that they have innate bleed on them, so that you can just infuse them with cold as well, and then you inflict both frostbite and bleed on him. Whereas with a longsword, you have to inflict either frostbite or bleed. So you get more damage from the status debuffs. Now, something that's great about this, if you're not good at parries, is that if you get behind him and he does the shield bash, he will always decide to do the shield bash again, or most of the time. So just stand behind him. You can stand behind him, he'll go into the shield bash, go behind him again, swing twice, and he'll do it again. And you can basically try to loot this. It's not perfect, but it helps, because it gives you a pretty good opening. Now, I'm starting to get close to the edge here. I want to bring him back a little bit closer to the shack, because over this cliff here is located a few skeletons. You do not want to fight them, and if you walk basically past those rocks, you'll act the skeletons as well as him. I generally go for the parries instead of the like looping the backstabs, because it's not always consistent what he's gonna do if you do that. Sometimes he can decide to swing. Okay. Oh my god. I generally don't like getting too far away from him, as when he starts going into the magic attacks, they're a lot harder to predict, and also unparryable. So... shoot. That wasn't good. My screen turned black there for a second. No worries, he was not too hard. Be like one more status proc and he's done. There we go. Oh. He still had 1 HP left. But that's that Bell-Bearing Hunter down. Now, this far into the game, most of the time you're going to want to use status procs, so like both of these are inflicted with cold, and then this one has blood just because it's claw. Those are going to be most of your damage sources. Bosses have way too high of an HP to actually deal any damage with standard swings. And now we approach Godfrey, or at least his Golden Shade. This is basically just a preemptive of what Godfrey will be in beat him later on. This is just his phase 1 from later in. I want to get him away from the wall. I don't like him being that close. Now I'm using the sword instead of the knives, or the claws, because since he's a shade, obviously you can't bleed him. I don't even know if you can frost him. But his attack patterns are pretty straightforward, even though I make mistakes. His attack patterns are pretty straightforward, and he seems to take a decent amount of damage, or at least not have too much HP. That I think it shouldn't be that bad.
And now on to talking about Godfrey. The main part of this fight was kind of figuring out the weapon selection that I wanted to use. Godfrey is considered a shade, so he is immune to all status buffs, like bleed, frost, poison, scarlet rot. He's completely immune to all of them, so any sort of percentage-based damage against him doesn't work. This meant that I had to resort to using just a weapon with the biggest damage number that I could. This was what I found to be the longsword. He is he's weak to lightning and piercing attacks. So I did try to use a halberd infused with a lightning ash of war, but upon testing, I think it did like 3 points of damage less than the longsword. So I kind of just reverted back to using the longsword because I was more comfortable with it. Also, using a heavier weapon in this fight was pretty nice, just because if you could get enough pressure on him and hit him enough times, you could stagger him, and then you were able to get a riposte on him. This wasn't a large amount of damage that you're able to do with the riposte, but it helps you take a small bit of a breather, and it does do a little bit more damage than a standard hit would. Now, in terms of his moveset, a lot of this fight is just getting down to a rhythm. Like, I found that his stomp attack was easily dodgeable. Like, you could dodge into him when he does that stomp attack, get over onto his left side, and then dodge whatever, like, swing he did next, and then you're open to punish him. Like, you could easily punish him after he does that second swing, and then if he decides to swing once more after that, then that also is easily punishable. So you could get in a lot of hits in really quickly on this boss. I think Godfrey's hardest move, for me at least, was the push attack that he has. It's a very fast attack, so I a lot of times just had the incapability to react to it and got hit by it a lot. And then obviously after it hits you, he likes to go into a second hit that would oftentimes just kill me after that fact. Once I got around that move, this boss wasn't too bad. The boss took me 14 attempts to beat. Compared to all of the bosses that surround him, this is actually pretty good. Keeping it under 20 deaths and is honestly actually much better than I expected from any boss this late in the game. This is also just kind of pretty easy because this is the first phase of the Godfrey you find later in the game, right before the final boss. So, you've seen this boss many times if you've already played the game a few times. So, I already kind of instinctively know the rhythm that you get in this boss fight. Now, I really wanted to aim for beating Godfrey kind of as fast as I could, because Godfrey is the one who unlocks your final talisman slot. Once you beat him, you can equip 4 talismans, which is basically the strongest your SO1 character can ever be. Talismans are most of what allow you to do anything in this. It allows you to equip heavier weapons, it allows you to take less damage, it allows you to regain stamina faster, so you can actually apply more pressure without running out. I kind of wanted to just get this out of the way so that all of the other bosses would be at least marginally easier, and I wouldn't have to deal with, you know, like lacking a vital part of the build. Now, something I hadn't mentioned before that I probably want to mention now is my usage of heals.
you can see that I don't have heals in my like hotbar. All of that is just like buff items, so like the turtleneck meat or crab claws just to give me stamina or damage reduction. Instead, I actually put my heals and the Wonders Physics Flask in the quick items farm, so I'll just press Y, bring it up, and then press like left on the D-pad and it'll heal me. This just allows for a lot quicker access of both the heals and the buffs, so you can use both of them a lot more. Instead of having to like scroll through that quick item bar, you can just really quickly use a heal, or check how many heals you have if you're not sure exactly how many you have left. This is something that I found really useful with that quick item bar, and I've basically been using it ever since I realized I could do this. In terms of how much I enjoy fighting Godfrey, his first phase, or technically what this shade is, it's pretty fun. It's a pretty smooth rhythm that you get going with him. But I really look forward to whenever I actually encounter him later on when he goes into his second phase with Horalu. That part is one of the best fights in this game. Like, I absolutely love Horalu. His first phase is really good, but his second phase is what makes him like so good. So this is kind of more of just like gets me looking ahead to the enjoyment that I'll have fighting Horalu right before that final boss fight. Alright, there we go. And then we got our final talisman spot. So for now, I don't think I have anything specific, so I'm just gonna equip the Green Turtle Talisman, give us more stamina recovery so we can be a little bit more offensive. I'll probably find a spot for it eventually, but I think that's all I want to do, at least in Lyondell for now. I think I want to continue down Ronnie's questline after this. I was just kind of gunning to get that last talisman slot just to get our full kit set up. Other than that, that boss isn't too bad. Obviously, like, if you get hit twice, you're gonna die, so that's obviously expected from every other boss in this after this. But his attack patterns are pretty easily punishable. You can keep really high offense. And it's the same as what Godfrey is when you eat his actual, like, corporeal body. Not too bad. I think now it's off to Nokron with Ronnie.
Alright, I think I'm going to leave this part off here. We're able to get through quite a few bosses, and we're also able to get through Radahn and Godfrey, getting our last talisman slot and opening up the ability to equip 4 talismans at once. This should basically allow us to equip our full build and have most of our strength going throughout the rest of this run. It basically should only get harder from here. But I think next time I'll be aiming through finishing up Ronnie's questline and continuing on from there. I want to get that done before I end the game, and I think we're at a point where we can complete that.
Anyway, that's all I have time for in this part, so I will see you all next time.